The automobile is one of the most important inventions that revolutionized the modern world. In America, the rich history of car culture runs deep as technology continues to shape the future of the industry. Jason Stein, former publisher of Automotive News, is here to share the stories of people passionate about cars, from industry leaders and innovators to car-obsessed celebrities. Buckle up as Jason takes you inside the boardroom, onto the track, and around the bend on Cars and Culture on SiriusXM Business Radio.
Welcome to SiriusXM's Cars and Culture. I'm Jason Stein in Detroit. On a big global design stage, there are moments that define a career, the reshaping of a halo car or the introduction of a new vehicle in a segment. And there are moments when being a guardian of a legacy is just as paramount. For Michael Simcoe, he's lived both worlds. You don't just accept the role of global head of design at General Motors without understanding the importance of the product and the importance of history. There is rich cultural significance in both. Simcoe is one of just a handful of people to ever hold the position. You can count on less than two hands the executives who have taken that mantle. In fact, he's only the seventh person to hold the title of Global Design Chief at GM. That's why, in a nod to history, Simcoe still sits in his suburban Detroit office that is the same office where the legendary Harley Earl once sat. The wood is still the same wood. The desk and chairs are still the same desk and chairs. You can feel the ghosts in the walls. And that's where Simcoe works with his team to create the new definition of GM. The one GM that is charting a completely new course in automotive history, one that is leaning in on electric and still trying to balance all those gasoline-crazy buyers out there who love their trucks and always will. So from Harley Earl's office, Simcoe is creating his own culture. An Aussie by birth, he's a rare bird in the short legacy of those who have paved the way before him. But maybe it's that experience at Holden in Australia and other stops around the world that have made him so interesting and will make GM, now a smaller global company, just as interesting. So today on the show, we talk to Simcoe from Harley Earl's office. It's a conversation about the future of GM, its design direction, its pathway on electric, and even a little bit on the competition. GM, design, and the future, from the head of all things design, on Cars and Culture.
Hi, I'm Mike Simcoe. This is Cars and Culture with Jason Stein.
It is great to be here with you at the GM Tech Center in Warren, Michigan, but most importantly, sitting in this room, which I think goes back to 1955, 1956, when...
This is 56. This is Harley Earl's office. Everyone post-Harley has been a custodian. It's still his office. Amazing place. And if you want to, you can get deep into the myth, and there's ghosts in the wall. But it's actually a nice place to sit and look forward. We can get sort of mired in the past, particularly in a big company with so much history that we have in GM and GM design. But we've got to look forward. So people come in here, get inspired, and then we take them out and we get them to be creative in the studios.
It's amazing that it's been kept the same way. So I feel like I've walked into the TWA airport at JFK, the hotel that's been recreated like the 1960s. And you look around the room and you have these, you have the wood touches, you've got trap doors, you have TVs that come out of cabinets. You've kept everything the same way.
Absolutely, and it's... there's been retrimming and there's upkeep, but essentially the offices is the way it was when Harley was here back in '56 when the building first opened. The carving of the desk and the integration of the couches and the seating around the walls. There's some details, including some of the metal and timber mouldings that we're actually going to take into our new building, just as a hint of this building into the new. It's a beautiful office. I'm very fortunate.
Do you feel that significance? You're still walking through the doorway here. Does it catch you?
I think it's for me. I think it's like most of the folks who work in design here, to work in a Saarinen building and on a campus like this. The tech center is pretty special, but you don't feel it every day because you're immersed in it. It's another workplace. When visitors like you come and or I do a tour, that's when you feel it. The place comes alive, and you actually realise what you walk into every day. The rest of the time, it's a workplace.
Tell me about the significance of Harley, Earl, to you.
Harley is the guy who started it all. I mean, he when he joined GM, between he and Sloan and the vision they had for the brands and how to take vehicles, by brand and through stage of life, that was pretty special. Harley created clay sculpting, created styling the way we now do it globally. So he was the first. He was Mitchell said he couldn't draw. I don't know whether that was true or not. There's lots of myths. But the guy had in my mind, he was an innate sense of performance and detail and execution, and had an enduring vision, and it lasted from 27 till 50.
Yeah.
An amazing imprint on the place, and frankly on design globally. It all followed him.
Is it required that if you're going to sit in Harley Earl's office, that you know every intimate detail about the man himself?
No, I mean, seriously, I knew about him. I know the history. I know the myth, as you do. You work in GM design. The myth is and the legend is part of it. But you learn more once you're immersed in this world and in this office. You learn more because people ask you more, frankly. And the more you experience the office, the more you want to know. So do I know him in detail? No, but if you think this is a guy who created design and has had I guess ideas and a vision as expansive as even being involved with the France family and NASCAR in its birth. Firebird One is on top of the sculpture because of Harley Earl.
That's right. Yeah. How heavy is the crown that you have to wear?
It's light. It's light. No. Seriously. If I got mired in that, then the job would be impossible.
Right.
I have there's a team of very creative people here in design that my job is to enable them, keep them doing what they do best, which is creatively designing and executing these days pretty stunning vehicles.
You're in year 6, right? Starting year 7?
I started in 16, yeah.
Yeah. What have you learned in this role that you can share with us that maybe we wouldn't know?
Yeah. I'm probably more humble than I was when I came in. There had to be a level of arrogance to say yes to taking the job in the first place. Although within 2 weeks I'd realised I might have made a mistake, but anyway. But I'm probably more humble now than I used to be because I've been exposed to more people and more work. I mean, my background is the Australian studios, Holden, and when I started back in '83, and then largely, apart from 3 stints, or this is the third 3 stints here in North America, I'd been working out of Australia and Asia Pacific. And so I was in smaller studios. So the impact of direction or decisions was nothing like it is now. Humbled by the responsibility, I suppose, is probably the biggest change.
You're only the 7th designer in the history of the company.
Yeah, lucky 7.
Lucky 7.
Yeah, it's quite amazing when you think of how long we've been around and doing this. This Harley started in 27. And I might get my dates wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the starting point.
Right.
And there's only been 7 VPs since then. And the 2 first were quite notable.
Yes, exactly.
For their impact.
So we'll talk a little bit about where you think GM is going from a design perspective, but I want to focus on where you've been, because you did mention Australia in your trip through the GM studios there, but also you were in South Korea. You have had numerous other global assignments. What have you drawn from those experiences that you apply to what you're doing now?
I studied as an industrial designer or a product designer, not strictly automotive, and so my take on design is perhaps holistic. I like to think of design as encompassing the whole business. They're not just stylists. They need to think of a solution. They need to be empathetic to the requirements of the vehicle, the function of the vehicle, and be part of a team. I learned the business in a small studio. As I said, I came in as a product designer, actually started in interiors. That's why I was hired. And I set out to learn the business because I knew nothing about automotive design. I learned the business through the parts of the business I didn't understand, which was surface. And the first thing I did was got hooked up to two incredible sculptors, clay sculptors, who basically taught me how to, the hard way, as is good for a young designer, but the hard way, how to learn surface and understand surface, and I guess from there, being in a small studio, you get more opportunity to do more and experience everything from light engineering and functional work and HMI and ergonomics. The whole gamut is spread across, is done, but spread across a smaller team, and therefore you learn quick. And all my experience in Asia Pacific and the smaller studios was like that. There were, there's this North America was always big enough in the studios to have a specialist focus, and in the smaller studios, jack of all trade sort of thing, or Jack and Jill of all trade.
Is the interior still your passion?
Cars are my passion, or automotive design is my passion now. But how does it extends more than just the surface and the style of the vehicle. I love mechanisms. I love to play the game of, certainly in my own head, of being the engineer. I've learned enough to be able to stand up with an engineer and have a conversation, naively, but it usually forces the engineer to have a think about what they'd like to do or what they should be doing to support design.
And the relationship historically between those two worlds has sometimes been a pretty high wall, right, between both groups.
Yeah, and I think famously the designers and the engineers, left, right brain, it's sort of the ultimate standoff. But the reality is, if one side of that equation, in fact, any piece of the big business becomes dominant, you end up with a poorer product. If you can't balance, you can see it. I mean, you can see cars and trucks on the road now where clearly one part of the organisation has won, and they're never happy as a result. The best thing for us is we do a really great job communicating what we need, then creating a vision and helping everyone else around us understand what we're trying to do, and balance that against criteria, and balance that against all the things that you've heard engineers and designers blame each other for. A designer who hides behind criteria or someone made me do that is just not doing their job. People find that strange to hear, but that's the reality.
Is design more complicated today than it was when you started? Are there more? I mean, obviously there are increasing regulations.
Yeah, but there's compounding needs, and frankly, the older an organisation gets, the more it knows how to do the business. I'm couching my words here a little bit. the reality is we know a lot about what a truck and a car should be these days, or what a vehicle should be. The danger for us is knowing too much and already having the answer without taking a risk, experimenting, having a vision for it to be different. So is it more difficult now? I think it's if you're naive to your impact, things seem easy. We're less naive these days, and therefore we understand consequence. And there are more requirements. There is more criteria. There are more insurance things that we requirements that we cover. And customers are way more sophisticated than perhaps they once were. It just had to look good once and work. Now it has to do everything fabulously.
Well, and this isn't the early 2000s or the 90s or the 80s when vehicles, you had a swath of vehicles that were exceptional, and you had a portion of the market that wasn't maybe not so good.
Yeah.
And now everybody seems to be on a bit of a same plane. Would you agree? Not only from design, but from performance and functionality, and you get a lot of people copying each other.
My allegiance says that I couldn't admit that everything's the same, but but realistically, the majority of vehicles in the market now, not all, but the majority do everything pretty well.
Right.
And the point of difference now is the vision, the style, the design execution of those vehicles, how well they're branded, and how well they address customer needs, both functional customer needs and the emotional ones as well. And these days, more than ever, the emotional is coming back. People want to look good. They always did, but maybe they didn't have a choice in the recent past. I think we're giving it to them now. Given
What will change from a propulsion standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
is there more opportunity to make them look even better in vehicles because you can do more stylistically given the change in platforms and engineering?
Well, certainly there was a short period where some of the vehicle designs were odd because they were overtraining on being different to demonstrate that they were hybrid or whatever. That's gone, and like you say, moving to EV and moving to an EV architecture does allow us to move things around, and certainly for interiors, it's a big boon. We can create more spaces, perceptually and physically, on a flat floored battery. We can choose proportion now. If you want to take the battery architecture and do a traditional long dash to axle to signify sport or premium, you can do that, or you can do a monocab if you want, recognising that we also have to be efficient in what we do. But yeah, it's a little bit more freedom. But with freedom comes different constraints. Yeah, whether it's gas or whether it's EV, you still have to work hard to make a good one.
So maybe you could talk a little bit about the different approaches to design as it relates to internal combustion, EV, or autonomous. How do you've got those three buckets in front of you now, at least for the short term. Mid-term and long-term might be a different story, but how do you approach design on each one of those?
Autonomous, I put that in a different category because that's absolutely about control and in a true autonomous vehicle. And so the choice there is more open. It depends on how much control you want, from zero control to an ability to take control. So I just push those to one side. ICE to EV, short of an ability to create a layout differently. The major difference, I suppose, is topographics. You've got a flat top, a flat floor, and corners to the vehicle, and EV is in its infancy, and motors, the batteries will get smaller and smaller and have less effect. Whereas in ICE, basically you're building around a motor, and the motor defined the architecture, and there you go. And the only difference the only thing we're dealing with really now is the fact that in most cases we're sitting on top of a battery. So we have to accommodate that.
So is that an opportunity then for young designers to have a bit of a white sheet of paper as this industry evolves? Do you wish you were 25 again in the
I wish I was 25 again, but for much different reasons. No, I think the young designers come in and they're always buzzing with creativity and what we more mature folk do is tunnel that creativity. Whether it's ICE or whether it's EV, it's the creativity we live off. And EV doesn't make it any better or more fantastical. It's still there, and we just have to channel it.
Are there opportunities because of the form and function that will exist in EVs? Let's say design of front ends will be different going forward with EVs. They still do have to breathe a little. I mean, I know where you're going with the grills and things. It's a little bit freer. What's really affecting the vehicles more and more these days is the amount of technology built into them. The designers have to deal with criteria or packaging related to sensors, LiDAR, cameras, the whole lot, and more and more. This goes to this focus on autonomous ultimately. The criteria in the front end of a vehicle is quite different to perhaps where it was. They do breathe, but don't need to breathe as much, and you can see a little bit of that in the new Cadillac front end, and even the graphics on that we've chosen for Buick. That shark nose on the Buick is a little bit about signalling a difference, but also it's enabled because EV doesn't require it to breathe as much. Lamps and things like that are getting smaller. Technology is helping in that respect as well. On the Cadillac, that big mask is all about technology. That buries a lot of sensors behind that surface, and so as like everything evolves, the sensors will change. The requirements around lighting and execution, efficiency of the vehicle will all have a play, and will evolve the face of Cadillac, the face of Buick, and the other brands as well as we move through time and technology changes, or we discover some new stuff we have to package. So Michael, you mentioned a couple of brands. Let's play a little bit of word association with the family of brands as it relates to design.
Yeah.
And what phrase comes to mind specifically as it relates to the U.S. market? When I say Buick, from a design standpoint.
Yeah, sculptural beauty.
Okay. Cadillac.
Technology, luxury and performance. Yeah. Visionary vehicles.
Chevrolet,
performance, almost strength to stability, or strength to performance. It's a vast portfolio, and so we a little bit of Corvette in everything, and a little bit of truck in the rest.
GMC,
capability, precision.
Is there you think about where the brands are positioned and your time at GM, what's the evolution of design here at GM from a philosophical standpoint?
We don't have a cycle of that we apply. We must change by this date. What you're seeing with Cadillac, for instance, right now is an evolution in the graphics and the character of the vehicles, enabled by technology, by EV in some ways, and delivering that, and also being able to see that in the vehicles in the showroom. But we're not, already in the studios. We're starting to look at the next generation of that. And does that fit to a cycle of we must do this every 5 to 10 years? No, we do it as a natural growth. We'll show a Cadillac concept perhaps next year, that might point to the future, in the way that we showed the early days of Celestic, because Celestic was the vision that created the current crop of Cadillac product that's coming through. So there's no cycle. Cycle.
We've talked to Aaron Crosley on this program about Celestic and just the impact that vehicle's making. I saw it at Amelia Island. It drew crowds. There were a lot of jaws on the table. Looking at it, what does it mean to you? It's certainly a statement vehicle in many ways.
It's a chance in a lifetime. I mean, as a team of designers and frankly for the company as a whole, to be able to create a hand-built flagship like that does exactly what it was meant to do. It's clear to everyone outside what Cadillac is and what Cadillac represents. It's all embodied in the Celestic, and then every vehicle inside the Cadillac brand sort of basks in that sort of that glory. I mean, that's what it's all about. To do the Celestic was to change the brand, and vice versa. And so you don't get a chance to make a statement like that. Well, in my case, once in my life.
Once in many people's lifetimes, because it was talked about forever, having a Cadillac flagship.
Well, I think there was a recognition for many years, way before my time, that to really impact the brand and deliver that message, you needed a flagship. And the move to EV, I think, was a line in the sand that said, here's the time to do it. And the vision was created in the studio in the way it should be, with something so emotional. To have a vision for that and then see the vision through and communicate its value, have all the necessary people get on board, and just chase the vision. That's what Celestic was, or is. Yeah, that's how it came to be. It's exactly what a product should be. It should always be a vision, and then we make the vision reality.
Yeah, there are many people who are out there who want to comment on what it is or what it looks like or anything else.
Yeah.
But it's design subjective, right?
Design subjective. It's these days, because of social. The worst thing a designer can do is read the comments.
Stay off the Twitter account.
Stay away from the comments. I frankly, I don't have social for that reason, because I think I wouldn't be able to help myself. But it is subjective, and a measure of how comfortable you are with what you've created is maybe a measure of how good it is. If you created something and you can stand behind it and you're comfortable and you don't have second thoughts, then you've got a winner. And at that point, it becomes a real vision, and it's as important internally as it is externally, both for designers and the brand and the company.
When you think about designs of the future, do you believe that design can and should telegraph a car's capabilities?
If what we deliver doesn't create an emotional response that talks to your point, to the performance or its purpose, then you've sort of missed the mark. Why would you do a rugged-looking off-road vehicle that couldn't leave the road?
Right.
Why would you do a Harley-styled performance vehicle that had no performance?
Yeah,
that's what we do. And I think it goes maybe to the question of EV and back sort of where I think you were going before. Do EVs allow you to do things differently? And I think I mentioned they allow us to create that vision or create that purpose. We don't need to do, with an EV vehicle, we don't need to do a long dash to axle and something that looks premium. But we want to trigger that in the customer related to the brand or the purpose of the vehicle, so we can make that choice. And in that way, EV has helped us.
Well, and in that way, I mean, designers have you alluded to this earlier. Designers have used the fronts of cars to really announce to the world what the make and the model is. You just said, with Cadillac is doing that now.
Yeah.
Shape of the grille, design of the lights, slope of the hood, and an EV can do all of that.
Yeah, and it becomes a little bit more of a choice.
Right.
Yeah, there's still packaging, but there's in some ways more of a choice now. You can choose the proportion of the vehicle more easily.
Will designers be able to design in automotive sexiness when vehicles are autonomous?
So there's the difference, I suppose, if we're going to get into it, between a shared autonomous vehicle and a personally owned autonomous vehicle. And when you get into the personal, then it's the decision of whether it's fully autonomous and personally owned versus an ability to take control. And so the stages of autonomous. The shared autonomous vehicles, I think eventually you'll see style and you'll see purpose in them, but for a long time I think they'll be more ubiquitous boxes that deliver people. On the other hand, the personal autonomous vehicles will still need to say something emotional about the owners. In the same way that vehicles have always done. They're an emotional purchase. They say something about you, whether you're a vehicle rejecter or a vehicle lover. But looking forward though, to the other side, to the shared autonomous vehicles, they still have to deliver a message of some sort, and it might be security. They need to feel secure, particularly in the first generation where people are stepping in and giving away control. They need to be safe in character and safe in feel, comfortable, great experience. So it's, again, design thinking all the way through.
Right. Culture. Are you part of this program is cars and culture?
Yeah.
Are you a fan of absorbing culture or taking in culture and then applying it to design?
I'd have to be dead not to.
Right.
The reality is, in this business, you can't not absorb the culture you're in, either absorb or reject it, frankly.
How important is the absorption of culture to what you do?
Well, it's part of it's part of the. I guess it's part of the brief. Really, you've got to understand the market you're in. You've got to understand the environment you're in, or that you're designing vehicles to go into. It used to be a bit of a chore. If you were trying to work out what a market looked like, you had to work real hard. These days, there's so much information. It's almost sometimes you have to not listen to the information because it's coming thick and fast. And if you listen to all of it, you get confused.
Right.
In all of it, in the end, you have to have a vision that you're prepared to stand behind and be confident in. And in creating that vision and becoming confident is understanding the culture around the product you're creating and around you yourself as you create it. There's a reason why in the past different vehicles have reacted differently to the I guess the economy and the market and the location they were developed. Less so these days. The world's flatter. The world's a flat one now because of the internet.
Sure.
But culture still plays.
I'm going to name a list of vehicles, and you tell me your reaction to them.
Here we go.
Some are your own, but some are competitors. But I'm just curious from a design standpoint now.
Yeah.
Corvette Z06.
Yeah. Do you want me to give you a word or?
Yeah, one or two words.
Yeah. Brutal.
Brutal.
A weapon, but a very precise weapon. Yeah. The best it's ever been.
Chevy Silverado.
Tough. The best.
Chevy Camaro. A vehicle that you had a hand in.
In the past, yeah. Yeah, just true sport. American sport.
Cadillac Escalade.
American luxury.
Pontiac Aztec.
Sad but understandable.
Okay. That's a good way to say it. Volkswagen ID Buzz.
Great. Needed.
Rivian R1T.
Confused.
Okay. Tesla Model S.
Yeah, amazing.
Okay. How about some consumer products that you can't get enough of? If we talk about phones or watches or glasses, who do you admire in the design space on that side?
You can't not admire what Apple have done. It's pretty spectacular. I don't have it. Is there anything I chase specifically? No, these days, except motorbikes, not much. I like motorbikes because I see them as an obtainable piece of sculpture. And I like mechanisms. I said before, I like pretending I understand the mechanical side of the business. So I love old motorbikes. In fact, it's a weird one. As I get older, I like older things. And maybe that's just a level of appreciation. Or I've decided I can't go fast anymore. Yeah, it's a funny world.
There's a tendency, and we're sitting in obviously an office that is very much would be the definition of retro.
Yeah.
But there is a tendency for design, either from consumer product standpoint or even just automotive, to go retro. Why does that occur? Do we just run out of great ideas, but we have this nostalgia for something that is older?
The number of letters where people ask us why we can't just do a Tri-5's Chevy again, and why we can't do this or that from the past, and it's a level of nostalgia, I guess, and it's frankly it's best to leave the past alone because in our case I looked to a vehicle that was drawn from Australia, great vehicle in and of itself, the Holden Coupe, called the Monaro down there, and it was dressed to be a GTO here. At that point, the vehicle was guaranteed a slow start here in North America because people had a vision of what a GTO was. And what was a good vehicle was hurt by expectation. So you have to be really careful. It's okay to channel a past and take some of the character perhaps, but just to deliver a modern version of the same vehicle, the same product is a bit, I think, a bit dangerous. And that's to me that's not what design's about. The interesting comment about this office though, and the furniture and the character being retro, one of the things that happens when people come into this building is they light up, even if they don't understand necessarily the history of the building, they light up because what they're seeing in the shops right now, mid-century modern, which has had a rebirth, was essentially built in this, or created in this environment. Sarin and Roach and those who created this amazing building, and the furniture in it, that's all back in fashion.
Yeah.
But in this office, it's not recreated; it's the real thing.
That's right. There's no interior designer who's come in to say we're going to do it just like 1956 in here.
Yeah, we get people come in and say, "Well, where'd you get the furniture?" Well, it's original.
Personally, for you've called the Stingray Racer the bomb. Is it safe to call it your inspiration or your favorite car?
Is it my favourite car? No, I think I was asked once to list, my favourite cars, and I got down to a list of about 100. And it's because I don't think there's ever a vehicle that I would say is my absolute favourite. I own some vehicles which I believe are design icons for when they were created and what they do, but are they my favourite cars? No.
What are some of those icons? What do you have in your garage that you're particularly proud of?
An Aston DB4, because I love the work of touring, particularly in that period. I have a Lancia B20 GT. Again, really simple. I love simplicity and I love proportion in a vehicle, and I also love the mechanical advancement that some of them represent. And the GT was, I bought it for that reason. I just many years ago when I couldn't afford it, but I bought one, and that was a boyhood dream. Vehicles like that, and there's behind you is a Ducati 900 from the past, but it's a design icon. It's a fabulous thing, and I tend to have favourites in that direction. But then when I have to list them, and someone asks you a direct question, like I said, I got to a list of 100, and at that point it became useless to anybody, and useless to me actually.
Porsche has been, you can look at a 997 from 2005 and look at a 992 from 2020.
Yeah.
And there are such subtle changes in that 15-year or 13-year period.
Yeah.
What do you think of design like that? There's just this constant iteration, right?
They do what they do really, really well, because they have a brand and image to protect, and a heritage of style and again, I guess precision on the racetrack and precision on the road, and appeal to certain customers. I mean, and they do it very well.
Right. Your work at GM has been influenced by your life experiences, your education, your travels, obviously.
Yeah.
That said, can you name some brands inside automotive, aside from GM brands, and outside automotive that you admire?
I've always had a love, in a modern sense, for Mazda and what they've done. They're so true to vision, so design-led, and such an efficient little company that creates. Little company, that's terrible, but a company that's created vehicles that were for enthusiasts, I think, forever, and just been consistent and done their job well. Products, like I said before, I think I admire Apple and what they've done, and how consistent they've been. Nice stuff. Beyond that, I wouldn't get into anything in detail, because I tend to buy a bit of everything. I like Paul Smith clothing.
Okay.
That's about as far as it goes.
Right.
I'm not much more sophisticated than that.
Right. If you were to think of the icons, of Mount Rushmore, if you will, of car designers, who would be on that car design mountain?
Oh, hell.
We've had a few designers on the program.
Yeah. When I think hard about it, I go straight back to my love for the simplicity of touring. Touring, and I would say, it sounds very parochial of me, but I love Mitchell's work. There's plenty more. I just no.
100 names and hard to narrow.
No, it's you put me on the spot. I understand. I have the things I like about pretty much everything, and to go in and it's a bit like the vehicles, to go in and name a vehicle, or name an individual, and there's no individuals. They were teams of people who backed up all the individuals. And Gandini and people like that have a special place. But there's so many of them.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone who's over the years they've done good work in their space and for their purpose. And
anyone who's a personal mentor of yours in the design space that?
The only one I'd say was a mentor per se was I had two people I'd regard as that. One was an engineer and one was a graphic designer. And the graphic designer was who's passed on now, a guy called Bruce Edwards, way back in Australia, who got me from being a dopey kid to being someone who had confidence and in their own ability. And I was friends with him because he did that for me for so long. And then an engineer who basically gave me my head at Holden. I worked for the chief engineer, a guy called Tony Hyde, who's still around, retired now. But he had enough confidence to let me do my thing, and help me through some tough times down at Holden, where the business was small, so everything was pretty tight. But we did some good work down there, largely because of the relationship I had with him. Beyond that, so many people have helped. When I came here in 2016, I think I said I wasn't sure I'd made the right decision, but I'm glad I said yes now. And Mark Royce has helped a lot. The combination of Mark and Mary and the leadership team here now has changed the culture, changed the business. GM's a pretty special place now. Closer to what I think in their hearts most people want GM to be than perhaps it's been for a number of years.
When you arrived in 2016, you said you were going to get out of the way of the designers.
Yeah. I haven't
still
done
feel that way?
I haven't done that totally.
Have you done that?
Not totally. Yeah, I've got an ego enough to have an opinion, but I challenge mostly to get people to live up to their capability. I've said it a couple of times here. I'm never disappointed, always dissatisfied. You just, as a designer, I don't think I'm special with this, but
it's sort of the plight of the designer, isn't it?
The focus is the next one's always going to be better. I mean, you get that trite response. What's the favourite car? Well, it's the next one we're about to do. Well, but it's real. It's real. It's you have to. If you're not dissatisfied, then you've sort of reached the end of your ribbon. So
wonderful. Thank you for having me in this very famous place, and I can feel the ghosts in the wall.
Yes.
And I can.
Myths abound in here. So
myths abound. Well, maybe you can create some more too.
Oh no, I get arrested these days for that sort of thing. Integrity means I can't do that sort of stuff anymore.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for being on the program.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks again to my guest today, Michael Simcoe, Global Head of Design for General Motors. And to see my interview with Michael, go to the Cars and Culture YouTube channel. Like and subscribe to see more than 90 interviews. And thanks for listening to Cars and Culture. You can follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook, as well as on Instagram @Cars and Culture SXM and on Twitter @Cars and Culture. I'm Jason Stein in Detroit. We'll see you down the road.